students, welcome back to the BA First Sem Optional English course. I am Dr. Vidya Patil, serving as Assistant Professor of English at Government First Grade Women's College, Bidar. In today's video, I will be introducing you to the different topics which you are going to study in the third unit, that is, a selection of poems. In this unit, you are going to study 6 different poems which belong to completely different styles of poetry and which also belong to the different periods of English literature. So come on students, let us find out which are these poems which you are going to study. So students, as I have already told you, the title of your third unit is a selection of poems. Now we will be studying 6 different poems. The first poem prescribed for you is titled Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. This poem is written by a famous American poet, Robert Frost. This poem was published in 1923. In this poem, we find a narrator who is a traveler and who stops to watch the snowfall in the forest. While doing so, he begins to reflect about nature and about society. Then, suddenly, he is woken up from his reverie and he realizes that he needs to continue his journey. In this poem, we find very effective use of various poetic devices such as imagery, personification, repetition, etc. This poem has become all the more famous, especially because of its last stanza, which reads like this. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. These lines have been very often quoted by great personalities, because of which this poem has become all the more memorable. The second poem is titled Daffodils. This is again a very famous poem which has been quite often prescribed in most of the textbooks. This poem is written by William Wordsworth, who is one of the greatest romantic poets. He is also considered to be the pioneer of the romantic era of poetry. This poem is based on one of his own personal experiences. In this poem, he describes about how nature has the power to please the human mind as well as to heal the human mind. That is, in this poem, he shows us that how nature can give us happiness and solace at times of trouble and distress. The third poem is titled A River. This poem is written by A.K. Ramanujan. In this poem, he describes his aversion of the new poets because of their inability to create new ideas or new concepts. He feels that the new poets are unnecessarily copying the older poets and their style of poetry. He also says that the new poets tend to romanticize things instead of describing the reality. He is very much disturbed by the absence of creativity among the newer poets. This poem is about a river which flows through the city of Madurai. In the beginning of the poem, the poet describes the beauty of the river, but then goes on to show how the river has killed many people and brought lot of destruction. So He shows both the aspects of the river, the beauty as well as its destructive ability. The fourth poem prescribed for you is titled The Sonnet Ballad. This poem is written by Gwendolyn Brooks. This is a modern sonnet. In this poem, Gwendolyn Brooks brings to us the story of a woman's heart and her loss. In the poem, we are introduced to a young woman who is crying because her fiancé has been drafted into the war. She is worried because she is afraid of losing him. In this poem, we find that the writer is discussing about the theme of death, of war, and how people continue to suffer even after the war is over. Because when the soldiers die, they leave behind near and dear ones who continue to suffer even years after the war is over. The fifth poem prescribed for you is titled To Mother. This poem is written by an Indian poet, S. Usha, and published in 1994. The original poem was written in Kannada, which was later translated into English by A.K. Ramanujan. The poem has a feminist perspective to it and is written in a narrative style where a daughter is seen pleading to her mother. In this poem, To Mother, we find the daughter is pleading and requesting her mother to not enforce the same code of conduct on her which the daughter's grandmother had enforced on her mother. So, here we find that the daughter is requesting the mother to free her from all those old age bondages and to allow her to lead a free and independent life as a woman. The last poem prescribed for you is titled I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. This poem is written by Maya Angelou and it was published in 1983. This poem is intensely personal and political in nature. In this poem, Maya describes her own personal journey and uses the bird as a metaphor to describe the racism and sufferings of the Afro-American community. Here we find that the poem talks about the ideas of freedom and justice. So students, I am sure you have now got a good idea about the different poems which you are going to study in this unit. Each poem will create awareness about different aspects of human nature, which in turn will create a better understanding about the human mind and open up new perspectives towards life. I am sure you must have liked this video. Thank you.